toutes les gens du pays à rendre hommage aux relations et amis qui ont servi le Canada. Les gens à créer une mur virtuel d'honneur et du souvenir. Plus de 2400 photos ont été reçues par famille et amis et insérées sur la présentation émouvante que vous voyez maintenant sur les grands écrans vidéo autour de nous. Les gens peuvent aussi accéder au mur virtuel d'honneur et du souvenir.
John had suffered throat Mississauga bumped after trying to grab it. That's a 22-minute. And I got the bike. That was Rotating Air Force. To go to when you go to the Archline, you need to go to the 22-minute show. That's something I really want.
We were just normally. That's a great part. Whichever way we go as first past the main stand here.
That's it right about here, right?
Yeah. Every year we just come here.
Allow me.
Yeah, I'll go get it. I'll go get it.
Well, I mean, they always like my time with Paul.
Not that guy.
NORAD one day, and I get a call from the Chief of Defence Staff, the Vice actually at the time, Admiral Murray. He gets on the phone. I'm looking for Frank Larrabee. That's me. This is Larry Murray. I said, hey, there we have a guy in the Navy. His name is Murray. He said,
Yeah, you're going to come over here when we this poor young gentleman didn't know what he was supposed to do. Stick with him.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. In about half an hour, the Royal Canadian Legion Dominion Command will proudly present the National Remembrance Day ceremony on behalf of all Canadians. On this day of reflection, Canadians pause to honor, thank, and remember our fallen.
We welcome your presence this morning. To allow people from all regions of the country to honor relatives and friends who have served in
Canada, the Legion has created a virtual wall of honor and remembrance. And loved ones. It is a memorial tribute to those who have served but are no longer with us. The virtual wall of honor and remembrance can also be viewed on the Legion's website as we share this special tribute with people across the country. Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. Dans une demi-heure, la Direction nationale de la Légion royale sera fière de désigner la cérémonie nationale
du jour du souvenir, au nom de tous les Canadiens et Canadiennes. Sur cette journée de réflexion, les Canadiens s'arrêtent pour se souvenir de nos soldats tués
au champ d'honneur, leur rendre hommage et leur dire merci. Nous apprécions votre présence ce matin. Afin d'inviter tous les Canadiens de toutes les régions du pays à rendre hommage aux relations et amis qui ont servi le Canada, la Légion a créé le mur virtuel d'honneur et du souvenir. Plus de 2400 photos ont été reçues par famille et amis et insérées dans la présentation émouvante que vous voyez maintenant sur les grands écrans vidéo autour de nous. Les gens peuvent aussi accéder au mur virtuel d'honneur et du souvenir sur le site web de la Légion et voir cette connexion tout spéciale. À bientôt.
Doors fall in.
Special presentation.
You are looking at the National War Memorial in Ottawa on this Saturday morning, where the National Remembrance Day ceremony takes place each year. That ceremony gets underway at 11 a.m. Eastern, less than half an hour from now. That war memorial was unveiled in May of 1939 to mark the sacrifice of those who fought in the First World War. It was on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month that the guns fell silent in that war, and it's why we have this act of remembrance on November 11th every year. Today, you can see a crisp, sunny morning in the nation's capital. It's just above freezing there, so a little bit chilly, but at least no snow, no rain on those pipers as they make their way towards the National War Memorial. Good morning, I'm Donna Friesen. Thanks for taking time out of your Saturday to join us. Canadians will be remembering and honoring the people in their lives who served and sacrificed so we can live in peace. And it's not just those who were involved in combat, of course. We also pay tribute to the countless military families who support and carry the burden of war. As we wait for the dignitaries to arrive for the ceremony that it begins in about just over 25 minutes from now, Mercedes Stevenson, our Ottawa Bureau Chief, is near the National War Memorial this morning. Good morning, Mercedes. You know the weather. I know you know well, can play a role in all of this and how many people turn out, how you have to dress. What's it like there this morning?
Well, I have 2 layers of long underwear on. That's usually how I monitor things for these sorts of events. The turnout is quite good. I'm looking around and, it is chilly, but by Remembrance Day standards, we're pretty fortunate. I've certainly been out here when it's been extremely cold or sleet or wet snow, which is so difficult on those remaining elderly veterans from the Second World War and from the Korean War, Donna. So we've got a nice dry day. The sun is peeking out from behind the clouds every so often. And it is a sea of people everywhere I look who have come out here to remember their own service, to thank those who are marching in the Veterans Parade for their service, and to remember those who have made such incredible sacrifices for this country and for our freedom.
Well, Mercedes, as you say, today is about remembering and sacrifice. We know that doesn't end, of course, when service people come home from tours of duty. There's so much more awareness now about the need for continuing care, both physical and mental. And I know you've been speaking with some of the veterans who are frustrated about the continued long wait for some of those services.
Yeah, it can be months and months and months. And as you can imagine, this is particularly complicated when someone's first getting out of the military because they're transitioning from having a doctor who looks after them all the time to now trying to find a civilian doctor who can help them with those claims and their medications and their needs. These are long, long wait times that have been long wait times for as long as I've been a reporter on Parliament Hill. And that has all been post-Afghanistan. So there are a lot of young veterans with very serious needs, everything from post-traumatic stress disorder to traumatic brain injuries, cancers increasingly becoming a concern for veterans who are now looking at toxic burn pits, as the United States has. They passed a law down there to allow veterans to be compensated who develop cancer after service if they were exposed to those. And as you can hear, things are starting to get underway here. But this is really an ongoing issue. And Donna, also suicide continues to be a really serious issue in the veterans community, something that veterans talk to me about all the time. You will not meet a veteran who does not know somebody who has died by suicide. And I think it's something that's really important for us to continue to talk about because there's just such a tremendous effect on the family and those left behind. And it's still something that really is struggling to be addressed.
As we wait for the rest of the service to begin at 11, Mercedes, I know you've had a chance to speak with the Chief of the Defence Staff, Wayne Eyre, who is there today. I think he joined the cadets when he was 12. He's served ever since. What is on his mind as he looks at the state of the world today and Canada's place in it?
Well, Donna, that instability in the world and his concerns, which you'll hear very bluntly, about Canada's ability to respond. Here's my interview with Wayne Eyre. General Eyre, thank you so much for joining us today. I know that it is always a very special and difficult day as well for members and veterans who have served. And of course, you were in Afghanistan. You know intimately the cost of war. We ask you every year, because I think it's such an insight into the truth of soldiering, that it's not about being a general today. It's about being a soldier. It's about service. What are you thinking of today?
Well, Mercedes, firstly, thank you for having me back again this year on our most important of commemorative days. This is a day for reflection. Reflecting on wars past, those who have fallen in the service of our country. But on a personal level, I think about all of those that I've served with that have fallen on operations, in wars, on training here in Canada. And so it's a deeply, deeply personal day. I also reflect on what's happening around the world. Our thousands of people, thousands of members of the Canadian Armed Forces that are deployed abroad in harm's way, and the declining security situation in the world. And just reflecting that to the history of our country, the history of those wars that are on the cenotaph behind us. And it's paused for some significant reflection.
Last year we were talking about there being a land war in Europe and how remarkable that was. This year we now have Israel's war against Hamas as well. One wonders where we'll be next year. And as you look at this and try to plan for Canada's security situation, what is your biggest concern as the Chief of the Defence Staff?
Mercedes, my biggest concern is not being ready. Not having the capabilities, the people, the training, the sustainment ready to respond to what is really an uncertain future. And our hedge against that uncertainty is the military that can respond, that can provide options to make sure that we are secure. We are not insular here in this country. If events around the world can directly impact our security, again, as the First World War showed, as the Second World War showed, as the Korean War showed, as Afghanistan showed, we are not alone.
Do you think we are ready?
We have much work to do. I am very, very concerned about our lack of our readiness state. We have much to do to get our readiness back to where it needs to be.
Somber words. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for your service, and we think of all of the men and women of the Canadian Armed Forces and our veterans today.
Thank you, Mercedes.
A stark warning there, Donna, from the Chief of the Defence Staff about Canada's preparedness as the Department of National Defence and the military are about to face significant cuts that the government is introducing. And just as I throw back to you, Donna, I wanted to mention quickly a few of the numbers of our deployed so that we were remembering them today. There are 2,840 members of the military deployed right now, 250 on Operation Impact in Iraq and Kuwait, 980 on Operation Reassurance in Latvia and other parts of Europe, and as well 300 on Operation Lumen. That is the operation to prepare to evacuate Canadians from the Middle East.
All right, Mercedes Stevenson, thank you. There in the crowd near the National War Memorial is also our chief political correspondent, David Aiken. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Donna. Good to be with you again for this day.
Yeah, lovely to have you, and on a sunny day as well. I know you've been talking to some of the people who have gathered there. What are they telling you about why they wanted to be there, wanted to be present for this service of remembrance?
Well, I thought we might ask someone himself why he wanted to be here. There are thousands here, and again, the weather for November in Ottawa is just fantastic. But Donna, let me introduce you to Emmett. Emmett's 9. And he's from Gatineau across the river, and this is his first time at this ceremony. Good morning, Emmett. I was going to ask you why you think it's important for you to be here.
Well, I think it's good to be here to thank you to the people who sacrificed their lives for our country, and certain people from different families and that have just sacrificed themselves.
Well, that's excellent. And your dad's right here, served in the artillery himself, and that's pretty cool. This is the Air Force insignia that Emmett's got on. And Emmett's standing beside Bob from Portage La Prairie, Manitoba, Donna. And Bob, you're taking a look around here. You see a lot of young people like Emmett, and you've got your grandkids with you. It's got to be great to see other generations at these events.
It's fantastic to see that. It's important, too, because with seeing that, we know the tradition of remembering will continue, and we'll be able to teach the younger ones what the importance is, not only of remembering, but of trying to keep peace.
That's great. Well, thank you, Bob, for your service. Thank you, Emmett. Thank you for your service and to others who served. And Donna, we'll send it back to you.
That's great, David. Thank you. So good to hear from people about continuing those the generations and keeping the stories alive. The main ceremony is at the National War Memorial today, but another one took place before we came on air. It was held at the National Aboriginal Veterans Monument. It's not far from the Cenotaph in Ottawa, and this ceremony honors the thousands of Inuit, Métis, and First Nations veterans who served in war and on peacekeeping missions.
What it means to me is that we're honoring all the First Nation veterans that served throughout and serving members. We're just as equal to our counterparts we served with. You know, we bleed the same, we sweat the same, we eat the same, and so forth. There's no skin color throughout the thing. We are servicemen and women.
Indigenous people weren't allowed to parade on Remembrance Day services before, I believe, 1995. They weren't allowed in legions up until about the 70s. They've always been, in a sense, forgotten or pushed aside. So the fact that we are having this fairly informal but traditional ceremony here in the nation's capital is significant for a lot of us.
Attending this Indigenous ceremony, we do this before we do the national ceremony. It's an opportune time to gather as many Indigenous veterans and current serving members, including members of the Aboriginal Leadership Opportunity here at the Royal Military College, getting them all together with some of our political leadership that's here, getting them to meet them as well, and the leadership being able to see that there's young members willing to still serve this country of Indigenous descent and wanting to continue to serve this great country.
And joining us like he does every November 11th is Dean Oliver. Oh, apologies. I'm just told we don't have Dean at this moment. Dean was at that service earlier this morning. We'll get to Dean in a moment. Let's go back to David Aiken, who's out in the crowd there. David, it's the service at the National Aboriginal War Memorial is such an important one, and the service of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people over the decades is something that just doesn't get the kind of attention that it should get.
But you know what, Donna, we've been doing these ceremonies for a few years, and I see, particularly over the last few, there has been an increasing attention on the contribution of Indigenous people to our Canadian Armed Forces. And that starts with the separate ceremony at the Aboriginal Veterans Monument, just a block away from the National War Memorial. And as we get started on the ceremony, remember it starts about 11 o'clock Eastern, you're going to hear prayers in English, of course, prayers in French, and you will also hear prayers in Ojibwe. And I think that is a really nice way of recognizing again the contribution that Indigenous veterans made through the Canadian Armed Forces, right from the beginning.
Changed over the decades, that's true. David, when you look around the crowd there, give us a sense of, we were talking earlier about the different generations. Are you continuing to see that? Are there younger and younger faces every year?
Well, they are, and it's really great this year because the weather's so nice. There are people from all generations. You heard Mercedes speak about the fact that most of our veterans now, if they saw service, they saw it in Afghanistan, and that brings a whole different kind of generation. This year, we're focusing on peacekeepers, and we just heard. I mean, more than 100,000 Canadians served in various peacekeeping missions. Very first one was back in 1954 in Cambodia. That was Canada's first peacekeeping mission. Of course, we were war fighting in Korea in the 1950s. And of course, the world nowadays, we heard General Eyre reflecting on that with Mercedes. We would love to get back to some peacekeeping missions, but unfortunately, the peace has to be won first, wherever that might be in Ukraine or the Middle East at this point in time.
Yeah, David, that was quite a sounding the alarm from the Chief of the Defense Staff in that interview with Mercedes, saying that his biggest concern right now is that Canadian forces are not ready for what might be coming. What did you make of that?
Yeah, and that is something that, Mercedes, of course, we're blessed. She's got so many great contacts within the military, both those serving now and veterans. But this is something that I think the Trudeau government is going to have to reckon with. They're ready to chop that budget by $500 million. And the way they want to do it is just try it out of travel and conferences. The Trudeau government says it won't be out of operational spending. But, General Eyre he's being asked to do so many things. Our military men and women are being asked to do so many things, both here in this country and overseas. And, there needs to be more kit, more people mostly to be able to do the jobs we're asking of them. And that's part of Remembrance Day, remembering what we're still asking of our military men and women.
All right, David Aiken, thank you. We will come back to you, David. And just a quick programming note, tonight our sister cable network, the History Channel, will air its original docuseries, Our War. It will shine a light on the extraordinary contributions Canadians made during the First and Second World Wars. That 2-hour presentation premieres tonight at 9 Eastern and Pacific on the History Channel.
He was right to the missing, believed drowned.
Let's go back to some of the images from the National War Memorial. Now we're expecting the Prime Minister to be arriving shortly. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in Ottawa this year for Remembrance Day. There he is in his vehicle. Prime Minister will be attending, we're told, by himself this year, as he and his wife, Sophie Gregoire Trudeau, have formally separated, and that means she will no longer take part in official duties such as this one today. We believe he is in that motorcade on his way there. We're about 14 minutes away from the beginning of the ceremony at the National War Memorial in Ottawa. And shortly after the Prime Minister arrives, the Silver Cross Mother will drive up there to the War Memorial. She plays a role in every ceremony in Ottawa. And this year, the Silver Cross Mother is Gloria Hooper. She's a woman from St. Claude, Manitoba. Her son, Sapper Christopher Holopino, was killed in 1996 during a NATO-led mission in Bosnia. And she represents all the mothers who lost children in the service of their country. There's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau just arriving, being greeted by the head of the Royal Canadian Legion. And as we watch that, let's go to the story of this year's Silver Cross Mother. Farah Nasser had a chance to speak with her.
Gloria Hooper is a mother mourning not just a loss, but a sense of possibilities. Her oldest son, Chris Holopina, would have been 50 this month.
I'm just thinking, I used to see those all the time, all over the place.
All over the house? Peacekeeping patches, memories of his missions.
And I finally made him take everything into the bedroom.
Since Chris was a young boy, military memorabilia covered Gloria's Manitoba home. He wanted to join the Army as long as she can remember.
Oh, he was 16 and he joined.
A reservist at first, after high school, Chris went on to 2 peacekeeping missions, Cyprus and Croatia.
He loved that. He just loved it, especially where there were kids.
Then at 22, Chris was deployed to the Bosnian war front as a combat engineer, where he would organize a donation drive for children there.
Because he said they didn't have clothes.
You must have been proud of them.
I was, because he was. But it was just that he was young. I didn't want him there so young. And I thought, well, if he's there for a while, he'll be back. Oh, sure.
On July 4th, 1996, en route to rescue a group of British soldiers stranded in a minefield, Chris was killed when his armored vehicle, similar to this one, crashed. His casket landed in Canada 7 days later, the day he was due to return home.
So instead of coming home as a person, he came home
as a body. And I know when they brought him and they said, well, you can't see him because he's too. So just remember what he was like before.
The government of Manitoba named a lake in his honor.
I've never gone there yet.
But she does come here. The cenotaph, where her son's name sits, just above the names of those lost in the First and Second World War.
because he was the last one they ever put.
And sitting beside it, a tiny toy soldier that took Gloria by surprise and back in time.
He always had those with him.
He just bring them with him.
Yep.
Gloria tells us she's now forgetting things. She lives with dementia, but loves to talk about Chris.
Do the memories become more foggy? Is it hard?
No.
No.
Not at all.
Really?
Yeah.
Your memories of him are crystal clear.
Yeah. It's funny.
It's the power of a mother's love.
I know, it's just unbelievable. I would just love to be able to see him now.
She likes to think he can see her wearing her Silver Cross medal. On Remembrance Day, she'll be representing all military parents, laying a wreath in Ottawa. Farah Nasser, Global News, St. Claude, Manitoba.
And there you can see the Silver Cross Mother arriving at the National War Memorial.
Ladies and gentlemen, arriving now is Her Excellency, the Right Honourable Mary Simon, Governor-General of Canada. Mesdames et Messieurs, Son Excellence, la très honorable Mary Simon.
That's Gloria Hooper walking up there, being greeted. And as you could hear, the Governor General is next to arrive. She's the last of the vice-regal delegation to arrive, and Her Excellency, the Right Honourable Mary May Simon, is with her husband, we're told, on this Remembrance Day, Whit Fraser, as we wait for them to arrive. Let's go to Dean Oliver, who is Museum Services Director at Know History. Dean, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
My pleasure.
Can we talk a bit about the Silver Cross Mother, who we just saw arrive, as we see now the Governor General arriving? Tell us about the importance of the Silver Cross Mother and what that role represents.
Well, it's a critical role and worn, I know, with great honor, but also quite heavily by those who lost a loved one in war. This year's Silver Cross Mother has represented other parents more than 20 times in laying wreaths at cenotaphs across the country, and they become the representative of all Canadian parents and families who've lost a loved one in service to the nation. I can't imagine the emotions that must go through them every time they do a performance, do an event like this. But it is incredible to watch, and the heroism and courage of them in doing so is just incredible.
It is, and hearing their stories, I've interviewed several of them over the years. We should say this is the Governor General, Mary Simon, arriving. She is, of course, the King's representative in Canada and is also Commander-in-Chief of the Canadian Armed Forces. And today she is wearing the uniform of the Royal Canadian Navy. And this is Ms. Simon's third National Remembrance Day. She took on the role back in 2021. Dean, this day, I'm told we're going to go to, thank you, Dean. We're going to come back to you in a little bit. Let's go to Mercedes Stevenson, who's there near the National War Memorial. Mercedes, this is about remembrance, of course, and reflecting, casting our minds back. But there are so many issues, as we've talked about, that veterans face today and that are on the plate of Canada's new Veterans Affairs Minister. You had a chance to speak with her not long ago. What's her message to veterans?
Well, her message is that she wants to take care of them, but there's not a lot of specifics, as you'll hear, Donna, when we press on what exactly the government is going to do to improve those wait times, or to deal, for example, with burn pits, these toxic burn pits that is becoming an increasing issue. You'll hear her reference a study from the Gulf War. There have been many studies since then that the department apparently hasn't looked at. This goes to the frustration that so many veterans feel year after year, where Veterans Affairs ministers make promises and no doubt have good intentions, but it seems like sometimes those frustrations, not just seems like, those frustrations do continue. Take a listen to this interview with the minister. Minister, thank you so much for joining us today. This, of course, is your first Remembrance Day as the Minister of Veterans Affairs. An incredibly important job in this country to look after those who have served and who continue to serve and make sure that their needs are met and their families are supported when they are injured or when they make the ultimate sacrifice and give their lives for this country. What is your message to our veterans this Remembrance Day?
Well, first and foremost, my message is thank you. Thank you for their service, their courage, their sacrifice. I've had the privilege over the past week and a half to meet the best of the best Canadians. This week I was at Sunnybrook Hospital, where we met a lot of veterans from the Second World War, Korean War that are still with us. And again, they've shared their stories, and it's very important as Canadians that we thank them for their sacrifice. We get the freedoms that we have today because of the work that they do day in and day out, and for that we are very grateful.
There are a lot of young veterans now. We sadly have very few veterans from the Second World War left, but those young veterans will have a lifetime of needs and demands in front of them. Everything from traumatic brain injuries to post-traumatic stress disorder to now, as we're hearing more and more, about burn pits, toxic exposure to huge pits of refuse that were burned in Afghanistan and Iraq and that have made many soldiers sick, according to the United States government, who has changed their policy. I'm curious to know, as you prioritize looking after these vets for the decades to come, how quickly you think you can make progress on speeding up wait times and addressing some of these concerns.
Your question is very valid, and we certainly recognize that services at Veterans Affairs have to evolve to meet the needs of our modern day veterans. To your point, we certainly have a lot of modern day veterans. We have approximately 8,200 members from the Canadian Armed Forces that are retiring every year. So again, we have to make sure that when it comes to services to deal with PTSD or any other type of health, physical health or mental health challenges that they have, that we are prepared for that. More than that as well, though, we also have to take care of the baby boomers that are now getting older as well and that are looking at long-term care services. So those are the types of conversations that we continue to have. But for myself, as the Minister of Veterans Affairs, we certainly want to be listening to veterans. And again, we have to evolve with the times, and we have to make sure that our services are meeting their needs.
Minister, are you looking at all at addressing the burn pit issue here in Canada, these toxic burn pits that some veterans believe are giving cancer and that in the United States Veterans Affairs now recognizes as service-related cancer?
So with respect to the burn pit issues, during the Gulf War, there was a study that was done with respect to the burn pits during that war. And the information that I was given was that there was no correlation between. But I have to say, we are always looking at every individual case at Veterans Affairs, and again, we assess them accordingly. We want to make sure that we are responsive to our veterans. They've been there for us, and we have to be there for them in their time of need.
Yeah, and I do know that the recent studies out of the U.S. indicate there likely is a correlation there, so I'm sure that your department will continue to look into that. Thank you so much for joining us today, Minister.
Thank you.
Donna, I guess we'll see if they do actually pull up those studies from the United States, which are much more recent than the Gulf War.
All right, Mercedes Stevenson, thanks so much. We're about 4 minutes away from the beginning, from the top of the clock, the 11th hour Eastern, and the formal ceremony will then begin at the National War Memorial. We're going to be quiet as that unfolds. So first you'll hear the Ottawa Children's Choir and the Central Band of the Canadian Armed Forces perform O Canada. Then the trumpeter will perform the last post. Let's listen in. And this is the lament performed by Warrant Officer Joshua McFarlane. And this is the Trumpeter's Rouse performed by Master Corporal James Langridge. We were expecting a fly past now. That's normally when it happens, and it was supposed to be CF-18 Hornets from CFB Bagotville in Quebec. But we were told just before coming on air that that's not going to happen this morning. So now the reciting of the Act of Remembrance.
Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
Ils ne vieilliront pas comme nous, qui leur avons survécu.
Grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
Gawid, Doniki Ka Siwag, Ejikin Win in Gangoyan. Ganiki Ka Min, Gawin, Getsi Win, Dayaksika Sinawa. Gawin Ge, in Daso Babon, Dabanana Jik Sinawa, Pigo, Nabageshbok, Minwa, Kukejebabkok. Gamakwen Manani, Gamakwen Manani.
As the Ottawa Children's Choir sings in Flanders Fields, the wreath laying will begin, led by the Governor General.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Mesdames et messieurs, veuillez vous asseoir.
Parade! Standard! East!
As we gather in this place of sacred memory, may these words I share now be for some the prayers of your heart, for others a reflection of your heartfelt thanksgiving, and for all, make this word speak to our duty to remember. Aujourd'hui, nous nous réunissons afin de se
Today is a time to remember, to remind ourselves of the past, to bring the past to life. Today is a time to remember that life in Canada, as we know it, is not a given. It is the fruit of the labor, the struggles, and the sacrifices of the past. Let us remember those who answered the call to battle and who never came home. Let us remember those who were wounded and who bear scars on their bodies, their memories, and their souls. May this gathering today bring them peace and healing.
Let us remember those families bereaved by the loss of a loved one. Let us remember with gratitude the thousands of Canadians who decided today, voluntarily, to serve Canada before themselves. Let us remember that the tomb of the unknown soldier represents thousands of Canadian faces and names. May each name become an additional motivation to work for peace and to put an end to the conflicts and divisions that plague our world. May our decisions and actions be imbued with courage and the values of peace and hospitality that make true dialogue possible. May our remembrance invite us to take action so as to choose diplomacy over violence and to choose to celebrate difference rather than exclusion, lest we forget.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice-Regal Party will now begin placing their wreaths. Mesdames et messieurs, le cortège vice-royal déposera maintenant leur couronne.
The Vice-Regal Party will now commence placing their wreaths.
Fields, the poppies blow between the crows.
The beautiful voices of the Ottawa Children's Choir singing in Flanders Fields. It's always impossible not to be moved hearing those young voices sing that song. Let's go back to Dean Oliver, who's in Ottawa as well. Dean, with the organization No History. Dean, every year we do this, there's a different event to commemorate, another milestone to mark. And this year, it's 80 years ago that the world was in a very precarious place, the Second World War, of course. And German and Italian forces were defending Italy. The mission to drive them out was a real turning point in the Second World War. Can you talk to us about what role Canadian soldiers played in that 80 years ago?
Yes, thank you for the question. They played a major role. We know mostly about the role on land, but also at sea and in the air. And it was part of the great campaign of the Allies to try to clear the Mediterranean of Axis forces. Began really in July in earnest in Sicily, 2 months of very hard fighting with thousands of Canadians in an infantry division and an armored brigade. Many died just getting there. About 60 Canadians died after a torpedo attack in the Mediterranean. And then that was followed by the long slog up the length of the Italian peninsula, only ending in early 1945. And that knocking Italy out of the war, which happened fairly early, we thought might shorten the war's length. But of course the Germans took over Italy, fought to defend every mountain pass, every river line, and in very early 1945, Canadians were still fighting there before they were eventually moved out of northern Italy, and that entire corps went to Northwest Europe and participated in the liberation of the Netherlands.
You know, I think the scale of the Second World War is very hard for people alive today to comprehend, who don't have that memory perhaps from family members, because so many of Second World War veterans, of course, are no longer with us. The numbers alone are staggering. More than 1 million Canadians served in the Second World War. More than 45,000 of them died. Another 55,000 were wounded. It just had a devastating impact on families, communities right across this country.
As in the case of the First World War, it was roughly 1 in 10 of us who served in uniform. Our death toll was lower, but our participation rate was tremendous. And in the Second World War, somewhat unlike the First, many, many more were engaged in war industry and the mobilization of resources. And so literally every home, every community, every farm, every business was impacted. And the country was, as the historians like me would say, transformed by it. The welfare state that we have, the nature of our industries, and perhaps given events now, Donna, the nature of our take on international security and our need to be present someplace else to protect it is a function of the Second World War.
Dean, as we continue to watch the wreaths being laid there at the National War Memorial, can you talk to us a little bit about the tomb of the unknown soldier and just remind us the significance of that and why it's there?
I can, yes. I was pleased to have done some TV commentary back in 2000 when the unknown soldier was repatriated. And so it stands, it was a centenary project of the Legion and Public Works Canada and others to bring back a set of remains that would stand forever for all Canada's fallen. The site chosen for it to be reinterred was at the base of the National Monument at the Cenotaph. And the soldier in there is someone taken from the battlefields near Vimy Ridge, an unknown. And by agreement with all the parties, medical science will never be used to identify those remains. So the remains will always stand for all Canadians who've fallen. And I should add that in 2024, a similar project will unfold in Newfoundland and Labrador, where an unknown soldier of that province will come back to their national cenotaph, which is on Duckworth Street in St. John's.
Dean, thank you so much for that. As we see veterans continue to lay wreaths at the National War Memorial, David Aiken is there in the crowd. David, hi there. I know you've been hearing from some veterans today. What have they said?
Yeah, that's one of the great joys, if you will, of the ceremony every year this year, is getting to talk to people about their experiences. And we did speak to many earlier today who attended the ceremony.
There's more to life than just yourself. And you have to be part of a team. Teamwork is very important. It's even important today after I've retired. It's hard to explain. It's people that I'm surprised at the crowds that we have, regardless of the weather, and people are here and they know why they're here. And after the ceremony, when they go up to the tomb of the unknown soldier and put their pops on it, that's heartrending. They're doing it out of sincerity and love and remembrance.
Has been a habit with the family for years, and in my particular case, I think it has to do with the people that we left in Korea.
Do you think about them often?
Yeah.
It's almost overwhelming. You know, I had been here like before Afghanistan, and things were really low key. And certainly during the Afghanistan years, the public really got behind the Canadian military, and it's overwhelming. And I'm at a loss for words still when people come up and say thank you for your service, because, you know, my first 25 years in the Army, no one ever said that to me. And yeah, it's overwhelming to see the public support and their appreciation.
And you know, Donna, we heard there, of course, of people who served in Afghanistan, in Korea, and as you're watching some of these wreaths being played, wreaths, it's hard to say in the cold, around the National War Memorial, there are wreaths there from some in the diplomatic corps here in Ottawa. Of course, the embassies of other countries are here, and that's very important because that is a recognition by the representatives of the governments from Europe, from Asia, elsewhere, of Canadian sacrifice overseas. There are cemeteries. I've been at one for a Remembrance Day ceremony in Hong Kong, Saiwan Cemetery, where kids from Winnipeg ended up fighting the Japanese in the Second World War. Cemeteries certainly in Korea and all throughout Europe. So that's an important component, that the diplomatic corps, ambassadors are here to honor the sacrifice and service of Canadian men and women. And on the flip side, if you look around the world today, say in Korea, in Seoul, at the National War Memorial there, you will see Canadian representatives at those Remembrance Day ceremonies. It's just as important to remind us that Canadian men and women, often far from home in very dangerous places, fighting and trying to defend freedom.
That is a good reminder. David Aiken, thank you. I think there are 91 wreaths being laid at the National War Memorial there in Ottawa. And of course, ceremonies taking place across this country in cities and towns at cenotaphs. People remembering in their own deeply personal ways. We're going to wrap up our coverage in about 10 minutes from now as this service in Ottawa carries on. But before we do that, I want to go back to Dean Oliver from the organization Know History. Dean, you are an historian. Your life's work is bringing to life the stories of past generations. And everyone today is thinking about someone in particular. Who are you thinking of today?
Oh, I was thinking about several. Thank you for asking, Donna. Perhaps mostly I was thinking about two people that I knew from the Italian campaign, Smokey Smith, our last living VC, who I had the pleasure to know, and also Henri Tellier, who had taken over the Vendoux after the Moreau River battle, or at the Moreau River battle, just south of Ortona. But I was also thinking about my late friend, General Paul Manson, who was a great Canadian and an Air Force commander and a chief of defense staff, and also afterwards talk about the impact of military service on life. He helped build the War Museum, where I was pleased to work for many, many, many years. And Paul passed away earlier this year. There are many others, of course, but those three were top of mind for me today.
Well, Dean, thank you for mentioning those names. We do appreciate it. And as always, thank you for joining us on this Remembrance Day. That's Dean Oliver from Know History. Now, some final thoughts from our Ottawa Bureau Chief, Mercedes Stevenson. Mercedes, you know, as I was listening to the prayers, one line really stuck out to me. That is that it's time to remember that life in Canada as we know it is not a given. And I think those who have fought and died in wars, those families who have family members who fought and died, know that almost viscerally. But it's something we do need to be reminded of each November 11th.
It is, and I'm thinking this year about three families in particular. The family of Peter Duff, who was a JTF2 assaulter, who had served in all kinds of highly secretive national security missions. He lost his life to suicide back in the spring. I'm also thinking about Mark LaRouche and about Dave Domagala's families, the two captains who crashed in the Chinook in the summer and passed away. The impact on these families, even when their loved ones don't die in war, and we've not lost anyone in combat this year, thankfully, are profoundly impacted, and it really affects the community. Morale right now in the Canadian Armed Forces is struggling. It's struggling in light of the lack of kit, in light of the lack of direction from the government, with the news of the funding cuts that are coming in the state of the world. And these are people who put their life on the line, not just when they go to war, but in training, which is also very dangerous. When they come home, and they come home and live with those wounds, which can ultimately take their life years after they leave the battlefield. And this is, you know, a very high operational tempo for some folks. For example, the Canadian Special Operations Forces, you rarely see them. This year, they are both in command of the Century program here at the National War Memorial, as well as at Beechwood, the National Military Ceremony, and you see them standing guard. Their tempo is incredible. They're all over the world all of the time. And we have Canadians who are serving this country so that we can have our peace, our freedom. And when we look around the world right now, and we look even at what's happening here in Canada, the warnings from Britain that there could be a terrorist attack here, I really think it's a moment to stop and think about those who serve and about the tremendous sacrifices that they make, not only while they're serving, but continue to, and the sacrifices of their families.
And that is what this day is all about. Mercedes Stevenson in Ottawa, thank you so much. As the wreaths continue to be laid there, they will be coming to a close shortly, and then the benediction will begin. If you're watching on television, we're going to leave you and let you listen into that benediction as it takes place in Ottawa. The ceremony there will continue for a while longer, and you can keep watching online at globalnews.ca and on all of our streaming platforms. For now, I want to say thank you for joining us, for taking time to pause, to reflect, and to remember. And we will see you tonight for Global National.
Aujourd'hui, nous
Today,
nous souvenons.
we remember.
We remember those who answered when their country called, those who fought, and those who died for something greater than themselves. From this very spot, a little over a decade ago, our departed friend and colleague, Rabbi Reuven Bulka, reminded us that when we look at our veterans, we are looking at the very best of Canada. They are our true heroes. They were ready to make the selfless, supreme sacrifice of their very lives, to stand up to terror, to tyranny, to unjust violations of human beings and their basic human rights. They stood up to unjust aggression and fought for the innocent. C'est une noble vocation et nous sommes reconnaissants qu'ils aient répondu. Beaucoup de ces hommes et femmes courageux continuent de porter les blessures de leur service. Blessures physiques, traumatismes et blessures morales. Ils méritent notre honneur et notre soutien total et sans équivoque. At this cenotaph, and before this tomb of an unknown fallen Canadian soldier, we remember that unthinkable numbers of our fellow Canadians did pay the ultimate price of their very lives. They sacrificed their hopes and dreams, their loved ones, their whole futures. They sacrificed everything. Ils ont tout sacrifié. We honor them best not simply by remembering their names or even by recalling their sacrifices, but by remembering what they died for. That their families and loved ones and grateful people throughout the world could live on in freedom in a land where human dignity would be recognized and human rights protected, where people of different backgrounds and histories would live and prosper together in mutual respect and social friendship. That you and I could live lives in peace and security, where governments would be moral, accountable, and responsible, and everyone would be equal before the law, where each person would enjoy religious liberty to live both privately and publicly according to their conscience and their deepest belief convictions about the very meaning and purpose of life. To live in a land that is glorious and free. In the haunting poem In Flanders Fields, written by the war surgeon and poet John McCrae, the war dead bequeath these things to us, the living, as a torch to be held high. Here at this place, before this hallowed tomb, we honor the fallen, and we renew our sacred trust to them. We will not forget. We will remember. And we will not break faith. We accept this torch from their failing hands and will continue to guard and cherish the values and ideals that they laid down their lives for. And for those of us of the household of faith, we entrust them to the loving kindness and the tender-hearted mercy of God. May they rest in eternal peace. Amen. God, keep our land glorious and free.
Ladies and gentlemen, God save the King with the Ottawa Children's Choir. Mesdames et messieurs, que Dieu protège le roi avec le chœur des enfants d'Ottawa.
Parade! Attention!
Viens
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attendance at the National Remembrance Day ceremony. Today, as a grateful nation, we stand in collective remembrance of all who have fallen in the military service of Canada. May we never
We'll continue on this way, Excellency.
Grab Ella.
Hey, Terry.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. Good morning, sir. Good morning.
Next year in Air Force uniform? Next year in Air Force uniform?
Oh, yeah.
Hello, sir. How are you? Good. Good.
How are you? Fine, thank you. Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
Sir, how are you? Good? Yeah, I'm good. Good, Mr. Hall?
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you? Good. That's good. Good morning. Oh, there you are. Oh, Ambassador, how are you today?
Nice to see you again.
Excellency,
how are you? Good to see you.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
It almost snowed.
I know.
Well, actually, it snowed for a little minute.
No, it's crazy.
See, that's the diplomatic corps now. So it's
Oh.
all the ambassadors. And
Oh, God. Hello.
Good morning, Japanese ambassador.
Okay.
Good morning. Good to see you. Good to see you.
How are you?
Merci d'avoir venu. Bonjour, monsieur. Bonjour. Ça va bien? Oui, merci.
Vous vous appelez comment?
Charles à la vie.
Plaisir de vous voir. Merci de votre service.
Oui, oui.
Merci.
Good to see you.
Harry! Eyes! Front!
Thank you. Calvary loves you, man. We do.
Okay, let's back up, guys. Back up, back up. Thank you. No. Yep. Okay, him, no. Lui, l'autre.
Take them out.
Yeah.
Take that out.
On va arrêter les politiciens ici dans la votre père. Oui.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
8 years ago, I should have Make Canada great again.
Do you remember?
Every day. Good appreciate that.
Don't forget now, make Canada great again.
What's that?
No worries.
She said that. Sir. Sorry. All good.
Get out of the way.
Jeff, try to clear the everything. Okay, good plan.
Good to see you. Are you from town or down the shore, around the bay?
Bay Shore.
Hi, Justin. Hi there. Hi there.
Hi, Justin.
It's good to see you, Charlie. See you guys. Pleasure. We love the veteran group. We love the veteran group, please. Thank you, sir. Paul Preston. Good to see you. Thank you. Yeah. Good morning. No, sir. Sorry.
Merci de vous parmi nous.
Ben non, merci d'être ici. Je chante voir les fous. Merci, merci. Vous avez une règle de spectacle quand vous aviez 10 ans. Oh mon Dieu. À Winnipeg? Oui, way back. Way back. Je me souviens de mes premières visites ici avec mon père.
Back up, please.
Plaisir. C'est en cinquième histoire. Elle aime beaucoup ça. Oui, non. Oui, je l'ai accroché pas mal. Oui, c'est bon. Elle en a à apprendre. Elle m'écoute pas toujours.
Take your long jumps up?
Yeah, I do. Every year. Every year.
Nice to meet you.
Hey there. Time. Nice to see you, sir.
Bonjour.
Hey, qu'est-ce que ça va bien? Écoute, merci d'être ici. C'est super intéressant.
On va être en mission avec mes tantôt. Merci. Hi, nice to meet you.
Thank
Nice to
you.
meet you. Thanks for being here.
my son's handwriting.
Oh, that's thank you. Thank you. All right.
Oh, yeah?
I guess I don't need this camera anymore.
Oh, yeah. I'd seen her earlier. She was
get a signal to open up the site? I'm gonna go talk to Carmen.
Yes, I am. It's my first time.
Jones from
Explosion?
no,
Miss you were though.
Jamaican.
Marlene. Although not right. He's going nuts.
Go ahead, Edward.
Sacred place, right? It's a tomb. It's a body that's careful. So it's meaning. It has meaning.
Obviously not nobody, but yeah, they know everybody here is somebody. You made me feel bad.
Voilà, tu vois. Yeah, it's like barely.